Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Used to be, and now in shit. Today was one of those days, something that was ignorable for 50 years decided to become unignorable and made a mess. It was just not a good day. So it's not as bad, I suppose, as, something horribly dying or some kind of other horrible, terrible, crappy thing that could happen. But it was a crappy, pain in the ass thing that happened. Anyway, so I'm less than prepared for my video. Anyway, I didn't even have a proper dinner. Yeah, so, I made a video, but, yeah, it's, whatever. Just gets harder and harder to find reason to live. You're just, oh, God, why do I, expose myself to this risk? And I suppose it's partly because I'm a chicken. And, yeah, and it's just this, you want it better than lousy, and it just seems like, until they give you the option to do it gracefully and nicely, yeah, you shouldn't have to do it in some lesser way. So it's just irritating to be played with, by these morons and their kind of cruel and sadistic pro-life shit. That's all it is. Nonsense. It's just garbage philosophy, to impose existence on anything. If something's capable of saying the words, "I've had enough, leave me alone," then leave them alone, because you're not going to miss them. You're not going to, the contribution will not be essential. It'll likely just be that they will be exposed to a bunch of horrible events and have horrible things happen, and you won't have done anybody a favor by saving their life. Just kind of a fact. Yeah, you can do civilization a favor. I mean, there's people I've encouraged to endeavor to persevere because, I'm selfish, and, I like them to be around. Just because I enjoy the security they might provide me in some way, and the idea of them being productive in terms of fighting for the cause and whatnot. And it's cruel of me, I suppose. It's because it is just life is just this perpetual risk that you're just waiting for some event that's not going to be, plane crash, whatever the fuck it is. Some kind of stupid ass thing will happen, and you'll have to clean it up. It won't be pleasant, that kind of thing. So anyway, it was one of those days. Just not a good day. Not a preferable way to live. But anyway, there's so many people got it so worse that so many people have it so much worse, so I shouldn't complain, But I complain very well. I'm sort of good at it, so I might as well keep doing it. I literally have done that my whole life. I was, I've related this story, but, we used to do a lot of traveling and in a car, and I would start griping about something, and then all of a sudden the whole family would recite complain, 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 and so that was the signal for me to shut up. And they'd give me sad sack comic books and stuff like that, always just trying to get on me for being a downer and a bummer. A party pooper, because I didn't get any of it. It all seemed like high risk nonsense to me. Everything just seemed like, well, what's the real permutations here? What are we really going to gain? You know, and everything was just too imperfect. Wooden, you know, they give you, like, we did stop for ice cream or something. They give you this stupid little wooden spoon, and it was irritating. You know, it was obnoxious to eat with. And, you know, the paper napkins, it stuck to everything. It's just, oh, I hated it. I just hated it. Yeah, I was sort of you know, I wasn't a neat freak because I would play in the mud. But I hated things that were, yeah, I just didn't, you know, there's a lot of things that just irritated me. And they still irritate me. But obviously I have changed my priorities. So now better things irritate me, like suffering on earth irritates me now, where back then I really hadn't figured it out. I'd figured out enough of it, though. I mean, I knew bugs got stepped on. I knew things got wiped out all the time. And it disturbed me that everybody's okay with this. You know, there's no funerals, there's no wakes, nobody cries. It's, you know, it just didn't seem right to me. All right, moving on. Maybe there. Find some distraction and not let those kind of thoughts. Right, so I was just talking about my mortality and how it does sort of creep into my brain almost every fucking day. That I'm too old, and, you know, there's all this stuff that's just waiting to get to me. You know, all this stuff, all the bad news kind of crap is just lingering out there. You know, I could live to be 80, I could live to be 90, and nothing go wrong, but you know it's not the odds. And so you're just saying, oh, what kind of creepy crap is going to happen? Ew. You know, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be old. It's no good, no good. It sucks. Fuck this. Really bad idea. I should have never allowed it to happen. And it wasn't necessarily going to be the subject, but it's because it's going to be the subject now. Yeah, so again, yeah, I just sort of got distracted, and so, you know, I can't say I had a good, solid idea of what the subject was going to be, but I knew it was going to be something different than it ended up being, because of the way the day went. Accomplishing something, and it's, you know, when it's going to be all said and done, nobody's going to want what you made. You know. Yeah, so I was just kind of talking about, you know, it's just all this stuff, you know, I was thinking all this stuff that's sort of precious to me isn't precious to anybody else. You know, it all just turns to shit. And I was thinking about that even further in terms of there was places that I found very contemplative and enjoyed, and yeah, I'm sure they'll just get bulldozed and things will, you know, and they're all just meaningless to the rest of the world. And it's just sort of sad that how much of those things, those memories, those thoughts people have had, those experiences they've had, are all just washed away and turned into, you know, there's just nothing left behind. Now, you could say, okay, well, maybe you could make some sort of 400-hour movie that would, you know, show all of the best moments of your life or something, or some of the best, the most contemplative and reflective. But then it would have to include, you know, all kinds of, you know, your best masturbation or something. I mean, it's just, you know, so it'd all get ruined anyway into something more less properly theatrical, you know, in terms of even your thoughts, and the, you know, it just doesn't really work. There's no way to put it into a nice narrative. I mean, without it just being boring. Yeah. Event, okay, what other people would cause to happen. and they don't really take any accountability, say, for all of the sentient other animals. Right, so, there's people who are supposed to be intelligent, and they can't even figure out this idea of, recognizing that, the future is really important. Lots of people are going to be in it, and their welfare is sort of dependent on us. We're going to create the nest that they're going to have to grow in. And then there's all those sentient organisms that are going to perpetually have to go through this cycle of life and death, and all these bleak and horrible lives that'll be endured. And it's just amazing that smart people can't even give that kind of thinking 25 or 30 seconds worth of their time. That's asking too much. And that's just tragic. Tragically foolish. Right? I mean, just trying to eke out a living is kind of complicated, because there's so much of it that's crass and cheaty, Yeah. So just the horror of just being part of the system and having to become a used car salesman or a whatever salesman. And there's so many jobs that require you to be a crook, and, to make a living. To be a crook in at least the sense of, oh yeah, buy it from our company because we have the best deal, when the one down the street has a better deal. If I was, a decent person, I'd tell the person, no, don't bother buying it from us because we suck. They're much better. Our mechanic is an asshole. That kind of, nobody's honest. So it's all, it's all depressing. And that's insidious. Good people don't do that. So it's getting, yes, lie, cheat, steely kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's just, so it's kind of a measure of character. I sort of knew I was doomed, as a youth. I could just see my future and figure out that how could I ever justify getting rich? Because I saw how people got rich, and basically it's because they exploited somebody who did something brilliant, and they own the company, and so therefore they own the value, that kind of thing. It was just kind of obvious that's how everything worked, and it just kind of sucked. And it's how it had to work. I mean, it's the only way business could survive. So because the world is competitive, and you have to compete with crooks. So you either become one of them or you're out of business. And just even doing this stuff, I mean, I delivered newspapers. I end up, because some people have sad stories, I end up giving them free newspapers, and it comes out of my pocket, And so every time I had a job, it was always, somebody give me a hardship case and say, oh yeah, I'll rake your leaves for 25 cents, that kind of crap. And so you always end up getting far less than you deserve. And, you get the only satisfaction you get out of it is, yeah, I'm a nice guy. That's it. So I could always say I was a nice person. But yeah, I never got paid what my work was worth. Children, I mean, that shouldn't be a hard thing to argue and to state without being called some sort of insensitive. Right, so I was talking about how shitty the poor are, especially the breeding poor. So it's one thing to have empathy for people in a bad circumstance, bad luck, this, that, and the other thing. But the reckless, sloppy breeders who have no reason to think they're qualified for this incredibly difficult project of creating a human being and providing the nutrient, the environmental stimulus that's going to make them into the best possible person they can be, to make them productive and happy. That's not an easy task. It's nearly, I would argue in some respects, it's nearly impossible. And these people with no means and no capacity, living in chaos, hand to mouth, to sit there and impose their deprivation right from the beginning. It's like taking the egg and cracking it, you know. It's exposing it to radiation. It's just so evil, frankly. And there's people even do that. I mean, they know they have some kind of genetic shit going on. They know they're a carrier of some kind of blight, and they just couldn't care less. And they just say, "Oh, we'll go for it." You know, it's hard to have words for people that mean. You know, and for good reason, because yeah, it's just not obviously worth you know, keep manufacturing this mediocrity. Yeah, so that's not much of a statement, but yeah, obviously you don't torture for something this unprecious. You know, the whatever we're producing, it's not diamond, okay? It's you know, some kind of dirty rock. It's just not impressive enough for the huge, gigantic, insane price paid for it. And so it shouldn't be a complicated argument to make to intelligent people that, well, fine, okay, you've responsibly replicated, and since you just had one kid, that kind of thing. You know, you haven't let your impulse get out of control and take on more responsibility than you're capable of handling. But if you don't stop all the slobs who aren't being responsible, if you don't do anything to discourage them, how have you not been a rape facilitator? Okay, so there's no point in you saying, okay, I didn't rape or I did a good deed. But if you're not going to force anybody else to do it, or you're not going to, you know, you're not even going to say the words, you shouldn't do that. You can't even muster that, you know, because you got to wave your pro-life, pro-stoic, you know, be strong, pull up your bootstrap kind of bullshit. I mean, it's disgusting. And so you should out yourself if that's really how you think. Yeah, if you're really a sadistic kook, you know, you should admit that you think you're worth it. You're worth giving a kid cancer for. Your reproductive rights are worth the taking this risk of you being the cause of some horrible torment that your child may endure. That the fun of it is worth it. You know, fuck you. Jeez. Just, you know, life sucks. Alright, anyway, so, I'll be back. Yeah, it's not a transition. Alright, back. See if I came back with something. Thinking. Yeah, so, but nothing constructive. Just still stuck on this. You know, people are just so impossible to reason with. Ah, there we go. Yes, this whole ignorant thing, stupid thing. You know, and it's just smart people aren't that bright. I mean, you know, they have the education, they have some knowledge, but they don't put the facts together in a reasonable way, and they end up believing in all this crap, like, you know, some, you know, transhumanism or some other kind of thing is going to come to the rescue and everything will be just fine. It's just bullshit. Okay, it's a bug planet, and if all you're going to save is the cockroaches and nothing else, you're not accomplishing anything. Levers, it works with all these things, and they'll deny it. Okay, so I talked a little bit of physics just because, you know, these two endeavors I am engaged in bang right into each other in the sense that it's the same problem. There's a really simple argument to make about physics, you know, and then certain things, and it's just like, the argument's really simple. I mean, it's all just as simple as saying you have zero evidence of some kind of crap you're spewing about the existence of some Holy Ghost. And they find it obnoxious that, you know, in a scientific argument or debate, that you would expect them to be able to produce evidence, that it wouldn't be just religion. And them just saying, well, I believe, I have faith in this, you know, idea. Even though there isn't any, I can't show you the evidence that convinced me, because there isn't any evidence that convinced me. And that's the scary part, you know, that a lot of smart people believe stuff for no good reason. And that's, yeah, that's a problem. Some typical American life, and if you dare to do something different with your sexuality. So I was talking a little bit of politics and, you know, the right-left thing, and just how idiotic the arguments are. I mean, the extremism that now owns, you know, the entire argument is just extremists arguing with extremists, and there's absolutely nobody reasonable can say anything that will be heard, because the only thing that exists is the mud the far left throws versus the mud the far right throws. For, you know, a lawsuit about them, you know, having sex with some underage girl or something. Oh yeah, it's about unions and how they've just totally failed. So it's just like every institution that you had some kind of faith or confidence were meritorious. Like the whole idea of unions fighting for their fairness and fighting for, you know, deserve having something to do with it. And all of a sudden, no, it's not about merit anymore or any of that. It's just about what we can get away with as extortionists. So give us more, or else. And if it's a big enough union, you know, like the government employees, it's a gigantic number of people, millions. And so they have a huge voting block. And so nobody can attack them, because it's almost guarantees you're going to lose an election. So, you know, they just have gotten totally out of control. You know, and most of them, literally most of the people who have wealth above $1 million didn't earn it. Yeah, so it's the fact. You know, it's just all this inherited money is, you know, what it's always been. It's, you know, there's still Rothschild fortune, there's still Kennedy fortune, all these old fortunes still exist, and they're just in more hands. And, you know, these are a bunch of people who haven't had to, you know, pay the price of the civilization we've created. You know, they've been able to perform with a net, you know, which is a big cheat, frankly. 4 pounds going 1 foot. So clearly so this is a physics argument again, where you have something very simple, and they haven't bothered to test it. They haven't bothered to do anything. 300 years they have to do a simple experiment, and they couldn't be bothered because, frankly, I think they're quite convinced that they're not going to be able to prove their argument. And so they're not going to, the evidence won't demonstrate the validity of their story. Their Jesus won't walk on the water. So they never force the Jesus to do it. Einstein's theories, and they never even tested it. Right, so I was giving the example of the Eddington experiment, kind of famous experiment that was never repeated, and then outside the margin of error, and in 100 years. And then on top of that, when we had a huge advantage of space, you know, we could do experiments from space, and there's 400 times an advantage in doing the experiment. I mean, the experiment's 400 times easier. It's 400 times lighter. It's 400 times, I don't know how to make, you know, it's just 400 times. And they still haven't done it. And it only takes 5 minutes and a mediocre camera. There's no good explanation for that as science. It's completely the antithesis of science to defend a science that doesn't repeat that experiment. Try again. Hey, right in the middle of a transition again. Interesting. So we'll jump right past it. Keep them from pissing in your drinking water, for fuck's sake. So I was just talking about people that do the wilderness thing and the whole, because I got a little bit on it by just talking about hippies and communes and how that always failed. And there's just no way to escape this, no matter what you do, there's taint, so if you go it alone, it's a hard life, and you got the environment's going to kill you. And then if you do the civilization thing and the structure and institutions, they all become corrupt, and they just become a burden. They'll come and get you. The government becomes your enemy. I mean, there's all kinds of examples where you can't win. I mean, I'm a civilizationalist, but I have to concede. I mean, it's not going to work if you keep electing crooks and you keep letting them hire even worse crooks. Sad story. I was in a train accident, and so I think I was given the story of names. It's always a problem. Yes, really. Anyway, the guy who wrote the Christmas Carol story. Like the hell can I remember his name? Dickens. From what I heard, that his whole life changed because he did have one of these experiences where everything went shit. So he was part of a train wreck, and apparently it bludgeoned him with reality, too much reality, and he was never the same person. Here to live that life yourself. And there's so many of these terrible stories. So I was kind of saying, part of what the science thing did give me was I read a lot of letters written by people 300 years ago to each other about scientific subjects, and they always included little personal anecdotes, and they're all so horrible. And I guess in that, as an example, one of Einstein, part of Einstein is, a big negative, frankly, from my generally positive statement about him as a decent human, was the fact of how he just couldn't have given a damn that his first child died, of scarlet fever or something. And, he couldn't have been more cynically disinterested, which, just scares you a little. I mean, the depth of his insensitivity was startling. Part is that in 10 years his life was going to turn to shit anyway because his wife was going to die. Oh, yes, I was talking about the Reeves guy, right? Christopher Reeves? Something like that. I should remember his name as just being some token of respect for his courage in facing his horrible circumstances. But, his life was sort of doomed anyway, right? If he didn't break his neck falling off the horse, he would have had to, he got a better 10 years, but he'd still have to deal with his wife dying, which would have just been, shit horrible. Huge responsibility, and you're going to have to, she's going to have to keep her happy, and it's going to have to be an interest. Yeah, so I was just talking about the fact that, I reminisce about what possibilities I might have had in my youth, and, the very fact that I was, in love and this or that, and thought that this might be an answer and this was going to solve my problems, but, in hindsight, and even then, there's this nagging truth. The truth kind of tries to seep in and say, you're deluded, okay? It's not going to be all that. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be, she's going to have needs, and she's going to have to be interested, and she's going to have to be entertained, and she's going to have to find you interesting enough, and you can barely entertain yourself. How are you going to entertain somebody else? That kind of thing. So, yeah, it was, it's just part of the delusions that catch us, and then we're hooked like the fish, and we just squirm and wiggle, and we just end up getting cut up as bait, for some other sucker in the future to swim the same pathetic, relive the same pointless, trivial pursuit. squirming, biology is accomplishing something. Yeah, so it's just, why would an intelligent thing sit here and look at the slop of life on this planet, human and animal, and draw some conclusion that everything's just fucking fine? I mean, it's just too silly. It's way too expensive. There's shit happening right now that's just unacceptably bad. And, a smart person should be able to say, yes, I understand it's unacceptably bad. If stuff has to do that for, me to have my yummy dinner, and whatever, fuck my wife, yeah, it's too high a price. Dismal, depressing. I mean, could one day of, when you think of like one day of World War II, just one day, all the crap that happened that one fucking day, how much gold would you have to pile on the other side of the scale to balance? What's the, there's no way you can say that we have accomplished something or done something to justify all of that nasty shit. Kind of point where it's just, I won't do this anymore. They just haven't gotten to that point where it just triggers, a bunch of memories and thought. Yeah, so most people just step past it. They just don't spend enough time reflecting on, their psychology and what really is their driving motivation and what's really compelling them, to defend the game and defend promoting and pushing and shoving things into that future, when there's no good reason. The only reason why is because they're trying to defend their own stupid little cruddy lives and trying to aggrandize them into something meaningful and purposeful and pretend it exists. But it really doesn't. I mean, they're afraid to tell the truth because they're involved in the sport, so to speak. So you could just argue that football isn't worth paralyzing a single kid for. And a football player should be able to say it, right? Shouldn't be beyond his capacity to say, yeah, it's a stupid game. It's a soap opera. Okay, you're just watching it because you have this character that you like and you want him to be the big hero and you want the other guy to fail and blah, blah, blah. And it's just soap opera. It's just silly psychological soap opera. So fuck that. Find something better to, wish for than Super Bowl rings. It's crap. It's a stupid entertainment. Pathetically stupid thing. That they haven't connected any of the real dots to see the real picture of, they've just been too busy being a scheming bug, okay, to apply a little bit of that scheming knowledge to logically interacting with the facts and saying, okay, yeah, it is evolution. Evolution is terribly inefficient, a lot of waste, horrible cruelties. They just won't do that. They won't account for the truth. And all they'll do is keep trying to paint their fantasies on this bloody canvas. Yeah, it's not bad. This parasitic infestation. Yes. Paint their fantasies on the bloody canvas. Yeah, I don't hate that. They're called life. Yes, which is death. Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? So it's not even properly named because, frankly, it's just one long march to the meat grinder. All right, so it seems like enough of a video. Seems satisfied my obligation for the day, in spite of it being a difficult day. Anyway, so till the next time when I'll try to be a better focused. But what's the difference? It's it's the argument really is, can humans be reasoned with? And the answer might be, not currently. No. They're too, what's the word? Fanatic, triggered by just silly crap, too reactionary, and too silly in terms of blaming all the wrong things, for what, not identifying what's broken. I don't know the good analogy for that, so I'll wait till the next time. Maybe I'll have a better analogy for that. So anyway, that's enough. So, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. And, yeah, hopefully, hopefully, I'll be here next week. Same time, same channel and such. Blah, 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 blah.